Hi, and welcome to Horror Recapped. Today we're going to explore 2013's Coffin Baby. Beware, spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. We start off in a cemetery where we find a newspaper that talks about grisly murders in the town. Then, we cut to Hollywood in 1958. A man lights a cigarette in an underground tunnel, and he eventually makes his way down the street until we seem to merge with present-day Hollywood. The ghost of the man still walks the streets, and a woman, Amy, senses his presence. She continues her walk until she comes to her place. Once inside, she reads a note that was left for her, but she doesn't see the man walk in behind her. When she walks into the bedroom, she's startled by the cat at first, but she goes down the hallway to check on her roommate. Her roommate, Sabrina, is dead asleep, but she's woken up when the man gets on top of her and cuts away with a pair of box cutters. He cuts everywhere possible, and when he's done, he makes his way out of the veranda door. The next day, we find Freddy sitting with detectives as he listens to a girl cry in the other room. While they wait, Freddy asks if the murderer killed again, and Detective Johnson asks him where he was the night before. Freddy tells him that he was watching a game, and he finds out that Amy found Sabrina dead earlier that morning. There's no evidence or trace of a weapon, and Jackson is not happy he had to come out for a sixth victim. Just then, Samantha comes out, and Jackson offers her counseling services for her loss. She tries to tell him that he has no idea how she feels, but he loses his temper for a moment when he talks about how he's been delivering the news to each victim's family member. Now that Sabrina has calmed down, he tells her that a detective is downstairs to take her to the precinct for more questioning. Outside, Samantha kisses Freddy goodbye, and she gets into the car with the detective. Once they start driving, Samantha tells the detective that she wants to stop at her sister's apartment before going to the precinct. Once they arrive, she finds that the entire forensic team is still there casing the scene. She's told to keep outside, but she comes in as the coroner is leaving with Sabrina's body. Once they take the body out, Samantha heads straight to her sister's room, and she sees bloodstains all over the bed and floor. When she leaves the bedroom, she goes to the bathroom, which looks even more like a ritual crime scene. She notices the markings on the mirror that have been written in blood, and she takes a brush to paint the markings on her own arm. When the detective comes back to tell her they have a suspect, he convinces her to come to the station to give a statement. An officer walks her to the car, and he tells her he'll be back in a minute. While she's waiting, a homeless man shows up to ask for a light, and she closes the door to the back seat. Suddenly, something slams down on the windshield of the car. The figure takes the head and slams it through the glass, and he drags her out of the car and knocks her out. When Samantha comes to, she's locked up in a cage in a nasty room. During her first day trapped, a light comes on that reveals the killer's multiple tools that are covered in blood, and he grabs her arm through the bars to reveal the markings she painted on her arm. The man comes back after a while and tries to scrub off the markings with a rough scrub pad. On day 2, Samantha wakes up to find the man stabbing her and taking a torch to her arm to burn off the markings. By day 5, Samantha almost seems like she's giving up. Her body seems to be shutting down, and the hooded man shows her pity by throwing her a bottle of water. Meanwhile, he drags another body into his workroom. On day 7, Samantha wraps up her wounded arm with some of the papers that litter the floor of her cell, and she swears that she will not be dying here. She thinks she sees the man hiding in the shadows, and she cries out to him to ask what he wants. Almost as if to answer, the man opens the cell and rolls a human head in. She quickly kicks it out and tells the man that she hates him. Meanwhile, some guys that seem to be friends of the human head that the guy had drive around town looking for him, and they eventually come across a shopping cart that rolls in their way. The driver gets out to move it out of their way, but when he pushes it aside, it turns around and comes right back. Twice. Suddenly, the hooded man shows up behind him and hits him so hard that he kills him in one hit. The next man that comes out to stop him gets his face cut off, and the other two are shot with the one man's weapon. When the man comes to the car where the woman is sitting, he takes her out with a bullet as well. Back at the precinct, the detectives go over the evidence, and they are surprised to find out that social media is running with the case. On day 10, the man shows up with another body, but this one is still moving. Samantha watches as the girl inside crawls out, and the man grabs a toolbox before leaving. The girl rushes over to Samantha, and she swears that she'll bring back help if she can get out. But the man shows up and hits her over the head with a hammer before dragging her away. After he gets her to the table, he slaps her behind before cutting her up to pieces. After the man is done, he goes up to sit on the rooftop, and we cut over to the police department where they've brought in Freddie for questioning. It turns out that he is connected to the victims even closer than they thought. He had a thing with both sisters at the time, but it turns out that he's telling the truth about not being the culprit. His alibi checks out. Back in Samantha's cell, the man has brought her a TV, and he tosses her the remote. He even pops popcorn. Samantha makes him upset when she keeps turning off the movie, and she throws her bedpan at him. He then rolls the TV back out, and Samantha continues eating her popcorn. Suddenly, the man sprays her with a fire hose, and she goes flying into the wall behind her. Day 13. Samantha starts eating the bugs that are crawling around her cell, but she also notices that the hooded man has left her some flowers. Back at the station, Freddie tells them about the last time he saw the sisters, and we find out that he had a baby with Sabrina. It turns out that Freddie and Samantha were going to leave Sabrina and the baby, but Sabrina overhears the conversation. It looks as though Sabrina drowns the baby in the lake, but when Freddie gets back, he only finds the blanket. Back in Samantha's cell, she starts to lose her mind a little, but the hooded man gives her all sorts of small comforts. TV, newspaper, and cooked breakfast are all given to her. The breakfast meat is from his latest victim, but Samantha doesn't care anymore. Finally, we see the man's face, but he is putting pieces back on in his own room. When he comes back out, Samantha watches as he disposes of another victim, but she's growing bored of the show. Later, he tases her and chains her up. He slaps her to wake her up, and he shows her a picture of Freddie. Then, she notices that Freddie is his next victim. She watches as the man attacks Freddie and cuts him into tiny pieces. When he comes over and cuts the chains that hold up Samantha, he leaves her to crawl back into her cell as a gift. He even leaves her the head. When the man goes to his room to look at pictures, he seems to have visions of a dead baby lying in the coffin with Sabrina's body, and he is distraught. Later, he goes back to Samantha, and he cuts off her hand. Then, he cauterizes the wound with a blowtorch. Over time, he packs her cell with the bodies of his victims, and she loses her mind a little more each day. She even talks to Freddie's decapitated head, and he talks back to her. Later, Samantha sees a little girl just outside her cell, and she tries to have her help her escape. The little girl shakes her head, but she still gets her a saw from the table. Just then, the girl disappears, and Samantha starts to saw the padlock on her door. When she finds that her door is open, she cautiously makes her way across the room, and she finds a body that is similar to her own. She changes her clothes to make it look like she is still in the cell, and she even cuts the corpse's hand off. Now that she's taken care of her decoy, Samantha sneaks around the facility, and she eventually runs into an old man that calls her into his room. When she comes face to face with him, he asks her if she's seen the little girl, and when she says yes, he claims that she is their savior. He tells her that she has to go back, and she can't believe what she is hearing. At the same time, the hooded man comes to give Samantha some food, and he quickly realizes that this is a decoy. Samantha sneaks back through the facility, but she's caught by the man just as she gets to her room. She knocks him down with her bedpan, but after she grabs a hatchet off the table, the man captures her with his chain. After an exhilarating fight, Samantha runs far enough that she finds herself in an abandoned hospital. She hides from the man, and she thinks that she's gotten rid of him. So, she grabs a saw and goes back to free the old man. Once she cuts him free, the old man leads her through the hallways, and he tells her that the little girl is nearby. Suddenly, the hooded man shows up, and the old man tells her to run. She warns him that the man will kill him, but the old man tells her that he's already dead. So, Samantha runs away with the little girl, but she loses track of her when she finds that the hooded man has her on the roof. She rushes him and knocks him off the roof. Then, Samantha hears a child crying from inside, and she follows the sound until she finds the little girl again. She carries her outside, and she tells the little girl that they're free. Yet, when she looks down at the girl, she finds that she's holding a dead body. Suddenly, the hooded man grabs her and drags her back inside, and Samantha can see the souls of the victims following behind her. Back at the station, the detective finds some video footage that shows the hooded man watching the couple on one of their nights out. As we get a flashback of the last time Freddie saw the sisters, we see that it was actually Samantha that drowned the baby in the lake. Back in the facility, the hooded man brings Samantha the baby blanket, but the ghost girl brings her her cell phone. Samantha calls the police, and they swarm the facility. After seeing the grisly scene, ambulances come to take Samantha to the hospital. One of the body bags is thrown into the back of an ambulance as well, and it turns out that it's the hooded man, and he's very much alive. The grotesque, grisly nature of the cinematography actually makes it seem like it's a realistic film. If you are looking for a grungy horror movie, this is definitely it. Thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.